Chosen one, listen to something that's going to completely change how you understand your life. 3 weeks ago, you did something you considered insignificant, a gesture so small you probably already forgot it. But in that exact moment, in celestial dimension, something occurred that had only happened 4 times in all documented human history. God laughed with joy. He didn't smile subtly. He didn't feel quiet satisfaction. He laughed. 49 seconds of genuine, pure, devastatingly happy laughter that made every spiritual dimension vibrate with a frequency angels hadn't heard in centuries. And when I say he laughed, I'm not using poetic language to make you feel special. I'm revealing a literal event that reorganized celestial priorities and left even the eternal accuser speechless. Your spontaneous act made God laugh with joy. And right now, as you're hearing this, you're probably thinking, I got the wrong person. That this message is for someone holy, someone who dedicates their life to extraordinary works, someone who fasts 40 days or preaches in the streets. But let me destroy that illusion immediately. It wasn't religious sacrifice that provoked divine laughter. It was your spontaneous kindness, that purity you manifest without calculating, the way you react when nobody's watching and you expect nothing in return. And that's infinitely rarer than any spiritual discipline. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on all notifications, because what I'm about to reveal about how a gesture you considered insignificant can generate joy in God's heart is being systematically hidden from people like you, who have a purity you don't even recognize as power. And stay until the end, because I'm going to show you exactly what you did, why God experienced genuine joy instead of simple satisfaction, and how even the devil, who always has something to accuse, fell into absolute silence when he witnessed the authenticity of your soul. Write 777 in the comments if you feel you do kind things without thinking twice, without expecting recognition, and you're ready to discover why your spontaneous kindness has more spiritual power than the most elaborate rituals. First, you need to understand what exactly you did 3 weeks ago, because I bet you don't even remember the specific moment, and that's precisely why it was so powerful. You were walking down the street, probably thinking about your own problems. You have enough worries, enough burdens nobody sees, debts keeping you awake at night, relationships draining you, that loneliness you don't share with anyone because everyone thinks you're fine. You were immersed in those thoughts when you saw someone needing help. It wasn't a dramatic situation. There were no cameras recording. There was no crowd watching to applaud you afterward. It was just you and another person in a moment nobody else witnessed. And your first instinct, your immediate reaction without filters or calculations, was to help. You didn't stop to ask if that person deserved your kindness. You didn't calculate if you'd get anything back. You didn't evaluate if it was convenient to get involved. You simply saw need and responded with instant generosity, as if your fundamental nature had no other option but to give. Maybe you gave money to someone asking on the street when you yourself are in financial difficulties. Maybe you helped carry something heavy when you were tired and in a hurry. Maybe you defended someone being mistreated when you could have stayed silent without consequences. Or maybe you simply smiled genuinely at someone who looked destroyed, and that smile was the first light they'd seen in weeks. The specific act doesn't matter as much as what it revealed about your essence, because what you did didn't come from religious discipline. It wasn't because you remembered a Bible verse about charity. It wasn't because you wanted to accumulate spiritual points. It was automatic, natural, as if your soul didn't know how to function any way other than kindly. And that spontaneity, that purity, that doesn't need to think before manifesting, was exactly what made God laugh with joy. Now let me explain why that spontaneous gesture had so much spiritual power. Because you need to understand the brutal difference between calculated kindness and spontaneous kindness. Most religious people never understand this, and that's why they live their whole lives doing good acts without generating any celestial reaction. Calculated kindness works like this. You see a situation, evaluate if it's convenient to help, consider what people will say, think about spiritual rewards you might receive, and after all that mental processing, you decide to act. It's real kindness, but it comes filtered through ego, through expectations, through strategy. It's the Pharisee who fasts publicly so everyone will see. It's the person who donates money but makes sure their name appears on a plaque. God observes millions of acts of calculated kindness every day and recognizes them, blesses them, honors them, but they don't generate joy in his heart. They generate professional satisfaction like a teacher watching a student correctly complete an exercise he taught. Fulfillment of expectations, nothing more. Spontaneous kindness is completely different. It's when your fundamental nature manifests without filters, when the purity of your soul reacts before your mind has time to calculate consequences. It's the Good Samaritan who helped the wounded man when two religious professionals passed by, not because he remembered the correct teachings, because his heart couldn't function any other way. And when God observes spontaneous kindness, when he witnesses a soul so pure it reacts with generosity before thinking, that generates something deeper than satisfaction. It generates genuine joy. The same joy a father feels when he sees his child naturally manifesting the values he always hoped to see, without having to force them. Your gesture from 3 weeks ago didn't come from spiritual discipline. It came from your authentic essence. And that authenticity was what made God laugh with joy. But here's what makes your case even more extraordinary. It wasn't just an isolated moment of spontaneous kindness, because God has been watching you for years. He's seen every kind gesture you made when nobody was looking. Every time you forgave when you had the right to hold a grudge. Every time you gave when you yourself needed. Every moment where you chose compassion when cruelty would have been easier. And he's seen something else. He's seen how the world tried to corrupt that purity of yours. The betrayals you suffered. The disappointments you faced. The injustices you endured. Every blow that should have made you cynical, bitter, selfish. The world gave you every reason to stop being kind, but you didn't. And when God saw that spontaneous gesture 3 weeks ago, when he confirmed that after years of trials, your kind nature remains intact, automatic, genuine, the joy he felt was so intense it manifested as celestial laughter. Because he'd finally found a soul whose purity doesn't depend on favorable circumstances. A chosen one whose kindness is as natural as breathing. That's why you specifically, not because you're better than others, but because you resisted corruption when everything conspired to corrupt you. Your purity isn't the result of an easy life protected from temptations. It's the result of constant battle where you chose to maintain your kind nature, even though it cost everything. And God has been watching that battle. He's seen every moment where you chose forgiveness instead of revenge. Every time you helped, even though you were tired. Every instant where you gave even though you needed. He's counted every tear you cried from feeling alone in your purity. He's heard every time you asked yourself if it was worth continuing to be good in such a cruel world. And when he saw that spontaneous gesture 3 weeks ago, when he confirmed that after all that suffering your kindness remains automatic, natural, genuine, the joy he felt was so intense it manifested as celestial laughter. Because your purity isn't naive, it's heroic. Now you need to know the complete history of divine laughter. Because when I tell you God laughed with joy only 4 times in all human history, I'm not exaggerating to impress you. It's literal. And when you understand the other 3 moments, you're going to grasp the magnitude of what you accomplished. The first time is recorded in Genesis chapter 17. Abraham was 99 years old, and Sarah 90 when God promised them a son. Abraham fell on his face and laughed. It wasn't mockery. It was laughter of incredulous joy at an impossible promise. And God wasn't offended by that laughter. On the contrary, he celebrated it. So much so that he ordered the son be named Isaac, which means, he laughs. God turned that laughter of joy into a permanent name because he loved Abraham's emotional spontaneity. The second time occurred in the book of Proverbs chapter 8 verse 30. Wisdom personified describes how she was beside God during the creation of the world and says, I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him. The Hebrew word used for rejoicing implies jubilant laughter, joy that cannot be contained. God laughed with joy while creating the universe because he was manifesting his pure creative nature. The third time is in the Gospel of Luke chapter 15. Jesus tells 3 parables about lost things that are found: the lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son. And each culminates saying, there is joy in heaven. When a lost soul returns to purity, when someone genuinely repents and returns to their original kind nature, God experiences joy so intense that the entire celestial dimension celebrates. And now the 4th time, your spontaneous gesture from 3 weeks ago, an act so pure, so naturally kind, so free from calculation and expectations, that it revealed a soul whose fundamental nature remains incorruptible. God laughed with joy because after years watching you resist the world's corruption, He finally confirmed your purity isn't an act. It's your authentic essence. Do you realize the company you're in? Abraham, father of nations, the creation of the universe, genuine repentance of lost souls, and you. Your spontaneous kindness generated the same level of divine joy as those monumental moments in spiritual history. But the story doesn't end there, because when God laughed with joy at your gesture, someone else was present in those celestial dimensions. Someone who never shuts up, who always has something to criticize, who spent thousands of years accusing humanity before the divine throne. And what happened in that moment completely changed your spiritual position. The devil fell silent. For those who don't understand spiritual warfare, this might sound like a minor detail, but let me explain why this is absolutely extraordinary. The devil isn't simply the generic enemy popular religion describes. His specific function, documented from the book of Job to the book of Revelation, is to accuse. He's the eternal prosecutor pointing out every error, every impurity, every moment of human weakness before the celestial tribunal. His name in Hebrew is Hey Satan, which literally means the accuser. It's not a nickname. It's a job description. In Job chapter 1, when the sons of God presented themselves before the Creator, the devil appeared specifically to accuse Job. In Zechariah chapter 3, when the high priest Joshua was being restored, the devil was there pointing out his dirty garments as evidence of unworthiness. In Revelation chapter 12, he's called the accuser of our brothers who accuse them day and night before our God. He never rests. He never tires. He never runs out of arguments. It's his nature so deep that even when he doesn't have real evidence, he invents malicious interpretations of good acts, turns generosity into manipulation, transforms forgiveness into weakness, reinterprets kindness as calculated naivety to obtain future advantages. That's why what happened when God laughed at your gesture is so absolutely revolutionary. The devil opened his mouth to begin the usual accusation, and no words came out. Total silence. Complete. For the first time in his eternal existence, the accuser who never shuts up had no arguments. He tried to point out your kindness with strategy to look good, but he couldn't because nobody was watching. He tried to argue you expected reward, but he couldn't because your gesture was spontaneous, without calculation. He tried to suggest you did it from religious obligation, but he couldn't because it was natural, automatic, without filters. He tried to accuse that your purity is temporary performance, but he couldn't because God has been watching you for years, and your kindness remains constant. The eternal accuser had nothing to say, and that silence was his involuntary admission that your soul is genuinely pure. The angelic hierarchies who witnessed that moment described it as one of the most impactful events in millennia. Because when the eternal prosecutor can't find accusation against someone, when the one who always has something negative to say is left speechless, that establishes what ancient texts call absolute justification. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It means your fundamental essence is so aligned with purity that not even your greatest spiritual enemy can refute your authenticity. And when the devil is left without arguments before the celestial tribunal, when the accuser involuntarily admits he can't point to refutable impurity in your nature, that activates protections and privileges that are going to transform your life in ways you're just beginning to understand. For those who want to go deeper, there's exclusive material in the description and pinned comment. The devil's silence wasn't just symbolic victory in distant dimensions. It generated immediate practical consequences operating in your life right now. Because when the eternal accuser has no arguments against you, when even your greatest spiritual enemy admits your purity, that establishes what ancient scriptures call spiritual immunity. Let me explain what this means in tangible terms. Those curses people sent against you out of envy, those dark rituals they performed to block your progress, those negative energies directed specifically toward you, they didn't affect you, and it wasn't because they weren't real or weren't powerful. It was because your genuine purity creates an energy field where darkness simply cannot adhere. It's like trying to stain light with black paint. Darkness isn't a substance that can mix with light. It's the absence of light. And when your essence is aligned with authentic purity, when even the devil admits your kindness is real, dark energies arrive at your energy field and are automatically repelled. They find nothing in your nature to resonate with, but there's something more satisfying happening. Those people who tried to harm you spiritually are experiencing what spiritual laws call multiplied return. Because when you attack someone whose purity has been confirmed even by the eternal accuser, the dark energy you send doesn't disappear. It returns to its origin multiplied. It's not divine revenge. It's automatic spiritual law, like trying to spit against the wind. Watch carefully those who betrayed you, those people who seemed to prosper while you suffered. Their apparent success is beginning to crumble in ways they can't explain. Their relationships fracture mysteriously. Their mental peace disappears without clear reason. Their health deteriorates inexplicably, not because you wish them evil, but because the spiritual universe is automatically correcting accounts. And while that occurs with those who tried to harm you, something opposite is being activated for you. The devil's silence before the celestial tribunal functioned as judicial sentence activating permanent protections. The archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel received specific assignments related to you. Michael, the celestial warrior, was charged with neutralizing any spiritual attack before it reaches you. That's why those dangerous situations resolve mysteriously before affecting you. That's why toxic people lose sudden interest in bothering you. That's why that illness that should have destroyed you healed inexplicably. Michael is fulfilling his assignment. Gabriel, the divine messenger, is guaranteeing you receive necessary revelations. That's why this message reached you precisely now. That's why there are moments where critical information appears exactly when you need it. Gabriel is depositing knowledge directly into your consciousness. Raphael, the celestial healer, supervises your physical and emotional recovery. That peace you're beginning to feel after years of anxiety. That emotional healing occurring without formal therapy. Raphael is applying treatment you attribute to your own resilience, but that has angelic backing. Uriel, guardian of wisdom, illuminates you with discernment in crucial moments. Those powerful intuitions that save you from disastrous decisions. That ability to read situations with supernatural precision. Uriel is fulfilling his function of keeping you mentally equipped. These aren't poetic metaphors. They're literal assignments activated when the devil was left without arguments against you. And they're operating in your life right now. Now you need to understand why you specifically. Because you're probably thinking there are millions of kind people in the world, and you're right. But there's something unique in your case you need to recognize. Something you've suffered your whole life without understanding why. Since you were a child, you always felt different. You didn't fit completely. While other kids enjoyed childhood cruelty, you felt uncomfortable. When you saw injustice, something in your chest hurt even though it didn't affect you directly. That sensitivity others interpreted as weakness was actually your pure nature manifesting early. And the world punished that purity systematically. They taught you kindness is naivety. That generosity makes you vulnerable. That trusting is stupidity. Every betrayal you suffered, every time your kindness was exploited, every moment where you gave and received nothing in return, the world was telling you, stop being like this. Protect yourself. Harden. Become selfish like the rest. And for a time, you considered that option. There were moments where you seriously thought about changing, about becoming calculating, distrustful, selfish, about protecting your heart by closing it completely. Nobody would judge you for that decision. You had all the justifications, but something in your fundamental core refused. Not because you're naive or because you ignore the realities of the cruel world, but because your soul recognizes that becoming corrupted to survive is losing something more valuable than life itself. You preferred to suffer being authentic than prosper being false. And that choice, repeated thousands of times over years, was exactly what built the purity that made God laugh. That's why you specifically, not because you're better than others, but because you resisted corruption when everything conspired to corrupt you. Your purity isn't the result of an easy life protected from temptations. It's the result of constant battle where you chose to maintain your kind nature, even though it cost everything. And God has been watching that battle. He's seen every moment where you chose forgiveness instead of revenge. Every time you helped, even though you were tired. Every instant where you gave even though you needed. He's counted every tear you cried from feeling alone in your purity. He's heard every time you asked yourself if it was worth continuing to be good in such a cruel world. And when he saw that spontaneous gesture 3 weeks ago, when he confirmed that after all that suffering your kindness remains automatic, natural, genuine, the joy he felt was so intense it manifested as celestial laughter. Because your purity isn't naive, it's heroic. Now let me reveal what's coming. Because the devil's silence and God's laughter weren't just recognition of what you already are. They were activation of what you're about to become. Within the next 60 days, you're going to experience what celestial hierarchies call accelerated divine alignment. That work situation that seemed impossible is going to resolve in unexpected ways. Not because you won the spiritual lottery, but because God decided it's time to visibly reward you for the purity you've maintained invisibly for years. The opportunity will come designed specifically for someone with your character, without requiring you to compromise your integrity. That relationship you need is going to appear, but it'll be with someone who vibrates on your same frequency. No more toxic connections draining your energy. No more people who interpret kindness as weakness. Someone who recognizes and values your genuine purity is being guided toward you as you read these words. That financial resource you need to manifest your purpose is going to flow, not as money magically falling from the sky, but as income opportunities requiring exactly the skills you possess. As if someone designed situations perfectly adapted to you, because literally God is reorganizing circumstances, and that inner peace you desperately needed is going to establish itself permanently. The anxiety tormenting you is going to decrease dramatically. The insomnia stealing your rest is going to resolve, because Raphael is healing traumas you didn't even know you were carrying. But there's something more about your future you need to know. Something that completely changes your understanding of why you were born in this specific moment of history. Your life isn't random accident. You didn't incarnate in this era by chance. You were strategically positioned here because there's spiritual warfare determining whether humanity evolves toward light or returns to darkness. And your spontaneous kindness, that purity you naturally manifest, is one of the few things preventing total collapse toward corruption. Dark forces know that if they manage to corrupt the last chosen ones whose purity remains genuine, they'll win this war definitively. That's why they attacked you so intensely. That's why you suffered disproportionate trials. They were trying to break you before you understood the power you possess. They failed. And now that you understand who you are, you've become a key piece of the transformation that's beginning. Watch carefully what's happening in the world. Corrupt systems that seemed eternal are collapsing. Hidden truths are being revealed. People operating in darkness are being exposed. It's not coincidence. It's the result of chosen ones like you maintaining purity, when everything conspired to corrupt them. Every time you manifest spontaneous kindness, you're energetically voting for what kind of reality manifests. And when enough souls consistently vote for purity, those votes have sufficient weight to tip the cosmic scale. That's why your responsibility now is to keep that purity shining. Because there are people watching you without you knowing. People on the edge of becoming corrupted, considering abandoning their kindness because it seems pointless. And when they see you maintaining your kind nature despite everything, when they witness it's possible to remain pure without being destroyed, that gives them hope to resist one more day. But you also need to recognize something else. You're not alone in this. There are other chosen ones whose spontaneous kindness also made God laugh. Not many. Approximately 300 across the entire planet. 300 among 8 billion. And they're being subtly guided to recognize each other. When you find these people, and you will find them, you'll recognize them instantly. There'll be something in their eyes reflecting the same thing you see in your own mirror. Kindness that survived battles. Strength that doesn't come from hardness but from refusing to become corrupted. Peace that has no logical explanation considering what they faced. Connect with them. Because when chosen ones unite consciously, they create energy fields so powerful they can transform entire cities. Dark forces can't operate where two or more chosen ones collaborate. That's why they worked to keep you isolated. That's why they tried to convince you that you were alone in your purity. They lied. There are 300 more exactly like you waiting to recognize each other. Chosen one, now you know the truth about the cosmic power your spontaneous kindness has over spiritual dimensions. You're not an ordinary person being occasionally kind. You're a marked chosen one whose genuine purity made God laugh with joy and left even the eternal accuser without arguments. That spontaneous gesture you made without thinking twice provoked divine laughter that crossed all dimensions and activated permanent protections, transforming your reality right now. Your natural kindness isn't naivety. It's spiritual power that reorganizes realities and determines humanity's future. If this revelation touched your heart and confirmed intuitions about your special nature, You recognize you operate on a spiritual frequency few people can access. Your spontaneous purity isn't weakness. It's cosmic force manifesting through a human being who refuses to become corrupted. For those who made it here and want to go deeper into this knowledge about how to consciously develop your capacity to maintain genuine purity, there's specific material costing less than a pizza that comes with complete audiobook and 5-minute meditation guide as special bonus. If you feel you deserve to amplify your connection with the celestial hierarchies that now officially recognize you, access is available in the description link and pinned comment of this video. If you recognize your spontaneous kindness has power to make God laugh and transform realities, write 777 in the comments to amplify this frequency of celestial purity. Subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications to receive more revelations about how your pure essence operates miracles in higher dimensions. Share this video with someone who also demonstrates genuine kindness without calculating, because chosen ones need to recognize and strengthen each other. And before you leave, click on the video appearing on your screen right now to discover how your new classification as marked Chosen One attracts permanent protection from personally assigned archangels. Together we are stronger.